Hello, and my name is Terry Butts, and I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the Richland District 2 School Board Candidates Forum. This event is sponsored by the Columbia League of Women Voters in partnership with the Richland 2 Teacher Forum. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to hear from 6 of the 7 candidates who are vying for the 3 open school board positions. Our school board candidates who are here tonight are Monica Elkin, Susan Brill, Jennifer Richter, Regina Corley, Stevie Johnson, and Chip Jackson. Chief Probst is unable to be with us tonight. What better way is there for you to make an informed decision than to hear from the candidates themselves? Before I turn the remainder of the program over to our moderator, Rita Paul, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize our school board members who are with us tonight. We have James Manning, our secretary, and we also have Dr. Bill Fleming. I want to thank you again for coming and welcome. Ms. Paul?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for coming out for this very important occasion. The League of Women Voters, I'm the president of the Columbia Area League of Women Voters. We've been working with Richland 2 School District over the years to sponsor these forums. So we are looking forward to a continuing long relationship with Richland 2. As you know, the League never endorses candidates, but we're directly involved in making sure that important issues are out and available to the public. We know how critical it is for folks in the community that vote to have enough information to make informed decisions about their candidates. So we're delighted to continue to sponsor this event and others like it in this election year that we have going on right now, which has kept a lot of us very busy. Jamie White, who is on the front here, is our timekeeper. So I'm pointing that out right now to the candidates because I know that she will keep you on track. Let me just quickly sort of go over the rules, if you will. We've got 6 of the 7 candidates here. We would like for each candidate to take 2 minutes for an opening statement. And during that statement, please tell us who you are, what your connection with Richland 2 is, and why you're running for the position that you're running for. We'll do that in alphabetical order, which will make it easy because we have you seated in alphabetical order. After the opening, we have 5 questions. And you'll each be given 2 minutes to respond to those questions. And what I will do is I will call on you in random order. At the end of the question period, you will again have 2 minutes for some closing remarks. And what I'd like to do with the closing remarks is reverse the order. That should put us pretty close to our 90-minute allotted time. However, if there are pressing questions from the audience that you feel have not been, a new question that you feel has not been adequately addressed, we did have some index cards out front for you to write those questions down. You can raise your hand at some point if you did not get a card, and we'll make sure you have it, but we need to have you write those questions down. So because we think this is so important, if we go over our 90 minutes, we can do that, 15, 20 minutes over our 90 minutes. I don't think we'll have a problem with that because you folks have come out here tonight to hear this. So let's make sure that we make every effort to answer your questions. So with that, Ms. Brill, if you will start with your opening remarks.
Thank you, and thank you for the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this forum, and the Teachers Forum for also being a part of this. Thank you very much. My name is Susan Brill, and I've served on the Richland District School Board for 6 years. Prior to that, I represented many of you on Richland County Council. I want to tell you a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Columbia, attended Rosewood, Hand, and Dreer. I also attended the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. To please my mother, I minored in secondary education. But I was always interested in politics and was fortunate to meet Senator Strom Thurmond when I was governor of Palmetto Girls State. Later, I worked for him as a summer intern while in college, and then after graduation, I returned to Washington, D.C., and ended up working for Senator Mark Hatfield of Oregon, writing about preservation of natural resources. I married Dr. Alan Brill, and we started a family. When we decided where to move, we looked at Northeast Richland County because we had heard that the schools were good. By this time, we had 4 children. Fast forward. Had 4 children, and I was a tennis mom, a school volunteer, carpool driver, cook, coach, and more. You know how it is with kids. Those were great years and busy ones. I filed to run for Richland County Council when my youngest son started to drive. My election was successful, and I served for 2 terms. While on council, I proudly supported Richland 2. In 2006, there was an open seat on the school board, and I ran in a special election for 2 years. I was reelected in 2008 for a 4-year term. I am honored to be your representative and work to be responsive, available, and open to all your questions and concerns. There is no product more important than our children and their education. They are the future, and we need to be certain that they are confident, stable, and prepared to compete in the world. I am seeking re-election because there is more work to be done. Richland, too, has changed, and our challenges are different. Economics and diversity. Not every child comes from a stable home environment, and not every child starts at the same level. But this is public education, and we turn no one away.
Thank you. Ms. Corley.
Good afternoon. My name is Regina Lyles Corley. I've had the honor of serving you, the Richland School District 2 School Board in 2004 and 2008, in which I feel that I served with great pride and distinction. Some of my accomplishments during that tenure was I supported the largest bond referendum in the history of Richland School District 2 due to enormous growth, and I supported staff and teachers' pay raises, promoted intervention service programs, and more technology in the classrooms. Additional training and development to keep teacher-pupil ratio low. I am also a product of Richland School District 2. I graduated from Spring Valley High School. I also have two daughters, one that graduated from Blythewood High School, and then another one that's at Westwood High School. I have already completed I have 4 years experience with Richland County School, I have completed 5 out of 6 level of training for the board offered by the South Carolina Board Association in the school as a school board member, and I've addressed critical concerns in a safe, comfortable working environment. I am a proven leader, a team player, one who is ready to get back to work, and my vision for the future of Richland 2 is certainly always safety is going to be number 1, then attracting and retaining our best teachers, also encouraging more parental involvement, also partnering with more technical colleges and the business community to address, again, the future workforce, the needs of the future workforce. As a board member, I was compassionate about the concerns of students and teachers and staff and parents of the great district, and I always return every call and listen to every concern. If elected, I will continue to be compassionate and willing to listen to your concerns.
Thank you. Ms. Elkins.
Good evening. I am very proud to call myself a career educator. And at early age, 3rd grade, I made the decision to dedicate my life to improving the lives of children. And in those 22 years, I have been a teacher assistant, classroom teacher. I've taught kindergarten, 1st grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, high school, home economics teacher. I've been an assistant principal in the elementary school and a high school administrator. I came from a single-parent household where education was still important in our family. I was raised by my grandmother, the late Luella Elkins Gant, who instilled in me the lesson that is taught in Psalms 127, where it affirms, "Behold, children are a gift of the Lord." And I have spent my life helping children, parents, and fellow teachers. I have sat down with thousands of children to give them the personalized attention they need when they are struggling with their studies. I have worked closely with the parents to further the education of their children, and I still maintain a positive relationship with both parents and students. Also, I have had the opportunity to empower, encourage, and motivate my colleagues in the field of education. Everything I have done in my professional career has been with one primary goal: making every school choice the best choice and putting every student first. That's why my mission in life has brought me to the point where I am here today. I would bring to the school board something that they have not had on it before, namely the view of someone who has worked inside of the school. I would bring new ideas to our schools and teachers' needs and students' concerns. Richland, too, is a district of excellence. Excellent students, excellent teachers, and excellent staff. It only makes sense that we take the steps that are needed to make our school board excellent, and I am that person. I will be a voice for students. No one in our school should be bullied, intimidated, or harassed. Safety is our school is not a luxury, but it's a priority. We should make sure that we make sure every student comes to school and they feel safe.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Rita. Good afternoon. My name is Calvin Chip Jackson. I'm real happy to be here. I'm also a candidate for Richland 2 School Board, and I'm seeking the opportunity to be reelected. First, I'd like to ask you, though, to simply join me in remembering the family of the late Takora Thomas, a mother in our community who on yesterday was brutally murdered. She has 3 children who currently attend Killian Elementary School, Killian Road Elementary, and 1 child who attends Longleaf Middle. And so we certainly want to remember that family. And also, let's not forget Gabrielle Swainson, because those are the children that we really are all about, and what our mission is really all about, is educating those children. I'm also a product of the public school system of Columbia, South Carolina, having attended public schools in Richland 1, A.C. Moore Elementary, Hand Middle, and Drill High School. Had the opportunity to then attend the University of South Carolina for both my undergrad and my master's degree in public administration. Worked in education for more than 30 years at the policy and decision-making level. A complex school district like Richland 2 needs someone with the experience of the leadership who's been involved at the highest level to ensure that as this district has drastically and radically changed, that individual is able to recognize those changes, develop strategies to address those changes, and ensure that we continue to be the successful district that we have been in the past, recognizing that what we did 8 years ago, we'll have to do something differently in the future to ensure that successful growth continues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you all for coming. I'm so deeply grateful that you all came to listen. My name is Stevie Johnson. I've been involved in my own children's education for about 21 years. Both of my sons graduated from Richland 2 high schools. My youngest, just last year. While volunteering at the high school guidance office in the last few years, I really began to work with kids that went on, whether they were going into the workforce directly, whether they're going to vocational training, whether they're going into the military environment or going on to college, and counseled them for several years. I had always been involved at the district level in such a superficial way because my focus had been with my boys' individual schools. 2.5 years ago, that shifted. I began to attend school board meetings so regularly. I've missed 3 in 2.5 years. I focused because I began to see things that I could make a difference in. At the district level, 2.5 years ago, I began to participate in community, we call them collaborative team meetings. Some of them were the Evergreen Efficiency Study that we opened to community review people, the district strategic plan, the committee for the district accreditation that we went through. I interfaced with the School Improvement Council. Perhaps the most significant and important thing that I share with you is in those 2.5 years, I studied each and every board agenda. I went through the briefs that were attached with it. I made follow-up phone calls to superintendents and districts that are outside of our area. I'm a bulldog when it comes to that. I am not a politician. I am not an educator by trade. I am an active community member willing to use my God-given gifts for the investment of our children's restoration of excellent education. An excellent point. Excellence implies that there's a conscious effort for each of us to hit our point. It's not a linear process, it's a circular process. And I believe that we've missed the boat in some of our initiatives, and I bring a sense that we might make a change to that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Richter.
I'm Jennifer Richter, and I want to thank you for coming tonight. I'm a long-standing member of the Richland 2 community. I've devoted my professional life to public education, and as a parent, I have a vested interest in the success of this district. As a student, I attended Forest Lake Elementary School, Dent Middle School, and graduated from Richland Northeast High School. The phenomenal educational foundation I received from Richland 2 fully prepared me for college at Clemson University. While at Clemson, I majored in secondary science teaching and received my bachelor's degree. I furthered my education at Furman University, earning a master's degree in educational leadership and earning a doctorate in educational leadership from Nova Southeastern University. As an educator, I taught middle school life science in the upstate and then returned to Columbia to teach biology and scientific research at Spring Valley High School. After completing my master's degree, I became an administrator at Spring Valley and later served as the magnet director for discovery and explorations. From there, I moved to Dent Middle School, back to my home, and developed and led the 2 Academy for Girls magnet program. Due to my husband's career, we temporarily moved to Virginia, where I was hired as a director of instruction and quickly promoted to an assistant superintendent. After moving back to South Carolina, we made it our priority to return to the Richland 2 community. We were adamant that our children would experience the same excellent educational opportunities that my husband and I were afforded as a child. Our 5-year-old son attends kindergarten at Catawba Trail Elementary, and our 3-year-old daughter thinks she's 5 years old and she's ready to attend kindergarten there as well, but we're making her hold off for 2 years. In short, my long history as a community member, student, educator, and parent in Richland School District 2 makes me the most qualified candidate for the Board of Trustees.
Thank you. We'll start with the questions, and before we do that, I really want to be fair to everybody about the time, and so going forward from here, I know you have a lot to say and it's all important. When we get to the end of the time, if you're in the middle of a thought or in the middle of a sentence, certainly that's fine. But once we get to the end of the time, we really need to move on. And again, I want to make sure that we're fair and everybody gets their fair shake. Thank you. All right, and I'm going to remember on these 5 questions, we'll call on you in random order. Okay, question number 1. The district free and reduced lunch rate is rising. What initiatives would you support to address poverty, and how would you ensure the community is more aware of this issue? And Ms. Richter, I'd like to start with you, please.
Sure. Poverty is an issue that I dealt with a lot as an assistant superintendent. It was my #1 role on my job description, that I was to reduce the achievement gaps from our subgroups to our white population. In the area of poverty, I think it's very important to understand that we all have basic human needs. And the first one is that we feel safe and secure. We can't learn if we don't feel safe and secure. But likewise, we can't learn if we're hungry, if we're worried about having a roof over our head. I had students, when I taught at Spring Valley, one student came in one day and said, I didn't do my homework last night because we had to lay on the floor and keep our lights off because there was gunfire outside of my house. They face challenges that we may not even imagine, and we need to be sympathetic to that. We need to start by not lumping them all together. They are all at different achievement levels, they all have different gifts, and they all have different values that they bring to our school division. They're all worth educating. I would propose that we start by analyzing the data and deciding what programs might be most helpful. I would propose that we really examine Ruby Payne's work on the framework of poverty. She has worked for decades training teachers on how to educate students of poverty, where they're coming from, feelings they have before they even walk into your classroom. So I would propose that we start examining her research and the efforts that she has made. I don't suggest that we bring her in and spend a lot of money on that. We have intelligent teachers, we have intelligent administrators, and I think a good book study on that and a good talk about it is really all we would need in that area. And then we need to focus on the nitty-gritty of educationally, what do they need? But until you understand where they're coming from, you can't reach them educationally.
Thank you. Ms. Corley.
I would like to, and this is something that I went to a workshop with two of our senators and one of our congressmen from Washington, and they were speaking of faith-based, having a faith-base to assist us with the poverty and the needs of our students and in this particular area. As far as free and reduced lunch, I certainly was one that was on free and reduced lunch when I was coming up. My parents had 5 children. All 5 of us was in school. We were pretty much little stepped. So therefore, you know, my parents did the best that they possibly could to make sure that we had a decent meal every day. When we had arrived at school, we were able to get a decent lunch. So, you know, basically, as the numbers continue to rise, it's going to be a decision, excuse me, not a decision, but it's going to be where we have to partner with other communities and other faith-based to assist us with the rising poverty in our district.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. The free and reduced lunch, that percentage is the most significant change that we've seen in the last 11 years. In fact, in the last 11 years, we've seen an increase of about 12.8% according to our own district records. The most interesting thing about that is when you look at where our district performs and you match that up against other districts in the state, there are a significant number, 24 to be exact, districts in this state who have poverty rates that far exceed ours, that are outperforming us. So what would I do? The first thing I do is contact one of those 24 districts with high poverty rates and talk to those administrators and teachers and say, what are you all doing that you're outperforming us? That's a relatively inexpensive approach, and I'd be quick about it. The second thing that I would do is if we had open and honest, transparent communication, this would be something that would be more easily discussed. I think that we hear about, oh my gosh, these changing demographics. Thank you. I'll get back to demographics. On the changing demographics, let's be clear. I can't read. I'm sorry, the light's so terrible on my readers. That's what happens when you're 50. When we talk about demographics, let's be really honest about which demographics are shifting. That's part of open and honest communication. I will act to restore education. C, communication. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. I think that when you talk about poverty, you have to look at it from the concept of a systemic problem that affects a lot of folks. And a lot of service providers have to be engaged and involved in the attempt to address it, even as it relates to education. Therefore, it requires a much more active involvement from the entire community. It's very easy to sit on the outside and point fingers and talk about what's not being done. It's much more difficult to get involved and represent your constituent group and take a hold of the problem and be a participant in it. There's a gentleman by the name of Jamie Vollmer who wrote a book. He's coming to Columbia not too distant future. And the title of his book that I brought with me is called Schools Can't Do It Alone. And he's absolutely correct in his book. And he talks about, I read his book and heard him speak before, he talks about how schools need to make sure that they embrace the community. And not only embrace the community, but engage the community in a very active, participatory way. One of the biggest challenges I think we have to overcome is trying to make sure that children who are in poverty get a tremendous start. Because if you have a successful start, in the early grades, pre-K grades, you're going to be very successful in the latter grades. And so looking at what we're doing in our pre-K programs, there is in our district data which shows children who are enrolled in our Spears Creek Child Development Program and even our Clemson Child Development Program far outperform their peers once they reach 4th grade on those standardized tests, regardless of their economic income and regardless of their economic status. And so the challenge for me, I believe, is to make sure that we do everything at the early grades and we engage the community in the process of creating this holistic community effort. I read a quote once that said, you can have a discussion where no one loses, and the victory is that we move forward in progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Elkins.
Thank you so much. As I shared earlier in my statement, I was raised by my grandmother in a single parent family, so I know a lot about living in poverty as well as free and reduced lunch. However, that did not hinder me. So when students came into my classroom, as I interact with students each and every day in the hallway, I saw students. I didn't see titles. I didn't see poverty. I didn't see free and reduced lunch, because parents send us the best that they have. Instead of us looking at students as poverty and looking at free and reduced lunch, we need to look at opportunity. We need to embrace those students and give them the opportunity to do their best, to bring out their best. Well, Ms. Elkins, how do we do that? We do that by greeting our students each and every morning, by stating to them and showing them that we care about them, we love them. We do that by getting our parents involved, calling parents. There are parents who may not come to the school. They may have had a bad experience at the school. That does not mean that they don't care about their kids. So we get parents involved. We tell parents how to teach their kids, how to work with their kids. Also, we bring in the community, because when I was raised, it took a village to raise a family. So what we do, we call on our businesses. We ask them to donate food to the schools. We ask them to apply students with food to take home with them. We also bring in the faith-based community, and we have those students to interact with mentors, with coaches. And then we tell those teachers to don't worry about homework. If the kids come with their homework, that's great. If they don't, give them the opportunity, because you don't know what that night has been like. And you only know what kids are going through when you have that positive relationship with them. So when they walk into your classroom, you know what their needs are. Provide those needs. Seek out grants. Do what you have to do to make sure that you have a community in your classroom and you're giving the students the best that they have, because after all, the parents have given us the best that they have.
Thank you. And Ms. Brill.
I would say as a district, we're well aware of these kinds of problems and that we are addressing them. And I know at each and every school, administrators and principals are aware of situations that are very difficult and very distressing. And I know each and every one of you are working on them in your own way. Just recently in our budget, we had more social workers. We also hired more family interventionists. So these are folks that can go into the homes and help families that are in distress. We're providing more free breakfasts and free lunches for kids, because as was stated, a child that's hungry is a child that cannot perform. There is a great deal of outreach by our schools and by our personnel. And as was stated, there are more pre-K programs now. And we also have a program where our staff goes into homes of pre-K kids to make sure that they have some readiness, they understand what is needed and available to go to school. I would say as a district we're aware of these issues and that we're certainly working on them. And I think the comments about faith-based is certainly very helpful and something that we could look into partnerships with other faith-based organizations that have outreach for these families. But I am extremely sympathetic and understanding of all the difficulties, especially since our economy has really taken a dive. And hopefully as it improves and people get jobs, they will have paychecks and be able to provide for their families. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to our next question. What is your understanding of the Richland 2 framework and how it connects to engaging students? What is your vision for moving the district forward, and what qualities would you bring to the district design team? And Mr. Jackson, would you start, please?
I'd be happy to. It is my impression that what this district is attempting to do, from my experience being on the board for the past 4 years, is to ensure that it looks at a different strategy and approach to addressing a different student than we served 8 years ago. The student we served 8 years ago, student that was much more, the group of students that we served 8 years ago was much more homogeneous in their grouping. The challenge for us now, as we get a much more diverse population of students, is to ensure that we recognize the varying learning styles that our students have, and that we create programs that will improve student achievement to address those varying learning styles. We also need a sense of urgency that says the frameworks will work. However, we need measurable, quantifiable data which demonstrates that students are achieving and are achieving at high levels based upon standardized assessments. If those data indicate that we're not being successful, then my challenge as a board member is to ensure that we revise the plan and that we go after it from a different approach. And finally, challenge is for us to rebuild the public trust. Public trust is absolutely critical to the work that we do. As I referenced a moment ago, the schools cannot do this alone. And so our challenge is to ensure that those that are in the public community are engaged in a positive dialogue and constructive conversation with the district to ensure that we move forward and make successful progress to address the needs of those students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Elkins.
Absolutely. When students come to us, they're coming bringing us what they've learned at home. What we have to do is take what they've learned at home and incorporate that into a learning environment that's a school setting. Although our goal is to make sure that when we teach students, we teach them and prepare them for college. However, not all students are going to college. So what we need to look at is innovative and motivated ways to enhance those students. There are so many students that have the ability to attend college, but they want technological jobs, or they want jobs that's hands-on. What I mean by that is we need to incorporate more of the CAPE programs. We need to bring some of those programs back to the school where students can be involved, they can be motivated. Bring back the welding, the family and consumer science. Bring back the beauty and barbering. Bring back shop classes, because after all, we're dealing with a totally different demographic. These students come to us. They are technology savvy. They're also hands-on. So we have to make sure we provide that learning environment for them. We can't think traditional anymore. We don't have the traditional students. So we have to make sure that we engage those students. We need to do a student survey to see what the students are interested in. We need to make sure we know how the students learn, and we teach the students based on their learning style. Also, we need to make sure that we incorporate all of these enhanced programs, not in some of the schools, but all of the schools. Because after all, we're here for all of the students, so we have to make sure we give our best to all of the students. We need those STEMS programs placed in all of the schools. After all, research indicated that in 2017, the majority of our workforce market is going to be technology. It's going to be hands-on. So what are we doing to prepare those students? Are we placing these programs in all of the classrooms? Are we engaging those students? Are we helping those students to be creative? Are we complimenting them? Are we embracing their creativity? And also, are we building those problem skills? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Corley.
Yes, I would like to see more diversity type training. The reason why I say that is because the child's environment is going to play such an important part as to whom that person is. A lot of times we don't know what the circumstances are with that child at home. So therefore, by the time they've gotten to school, they may have gone through so many different issues. And when they get to school, then they're expected to sit in their chairs, they're expected to be prepared to learn. Well, it's very difficult for these students to be able to sit down and learn after a long night of different issues, as I said before. So the other thing that I would like to do is for students that are not going to be going to a four-year college is to have them, is to basically partner with more technical colleges. I know for a fact that there are many, many jobs out there that right now we do not have the workforce that's prepared for those particular positions. So in order for us to really expose these children to these different type positions, we would have to actually go out to the business community and ask them, you know, what are your needs right now? What are the needs that are going to be in the next 5 years? So that we could go ahead and start preparing to our children for, start preparing our children to be able to enter the workforce in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brill.
My vision is to help every child reach his potential, regardless of his background or his difficulties. And in doing this, we have magnets that we're offering. Also, it's important that each child be reading by the 3rd grade. If they're not reading by the 3rd grade, their chances are great that we will be losing them. Also, I also want to make sure that every school is a good choice. We've opened a lot of new schools this year, and it's important that every community realize that this is their community school and that they buy into what's happening in that school and take ownership of it. I also think it's important as a district, and this was already mentioned, that we build trust. And I think that's a really important element as all this change is taking place. And trust is an element that we have to build in communication with everyone. Perhaps it was suggested to me that we have community forums, you know, like every quarter. I think that's an important aspect of working with the community, is letting you know what's happening, that we're good stewards of your money, of the taxpayers' money, how we're using bond referendum money. I think communication is key, and that's something that we can do more of, and that's part of my vision, better communication. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
What is my vision and how would I achieve it? My vision is simple. I will act to restore excellence. And I keep going back to that because ACT is A-C-T. A is accountability. Accountability means that before you start pouring money into major initiatives, we understand what we're asking to happen. It's not we get into the one-to-one computing initiative and then we think in the 2nd year, in the midway point, let's hire someone to see what the outcomes are and if people are satisfied with it. It's not we're going to spend millions for a particular type of professional development and see when it's working. We need to know how we will evaluate. That's the accountability. The C is the communication. We can't keep talking that we're going to be honest and transparent. It was enormous effort to get the fiscal transparency in place, over a year of working to have that done at the district and board level. That should have been a quickie. It was a state law, for Pete's sakes. If you had honest and open communication, we would automatically have the accountability. When we go to the T on the ACT, that would be the technology use being done in a common sense approach. We would know why we wanted to use the technology and how it would actually help us. So sure, my vision is that we would act for each person to have their excellence point realized. Remember, excellence is not linear. Excellence is a conscious act for you to reach your potential wherever your potential is. That would mean that it's a circular thing. We're members of a body, and I might be here, and Miss Jennifer might be here, and Mr. Chip is there, but we're all reaching our excellence points. Those are key. There are individual programs in place, but if we worried about accountability, communication, and effective use of technology, we would be reaching education excellence. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Richter.
I'd like to go back to your direct question, and that's what do we know about the framework of District 2? I find that to be a very interesting question because when I started considering running for the school board about 1.5 years ago, I had many people asking me if I would do this. And I gave it much thought and much consideration. And I started asking teachers and administrators and parents that I knew, some that watched me grow up, some that I worked with, and some that I led. And what I kept hearing from all of them was the same thing. Oh, our framework is Phil Schlechte. We are going through 2 conferences with Schlechte, and I understand that. I understand what he's about. I've studied his work. I understand authentic engagement versus compliance. We do need to authentically engage our students. We do need to know who's sitting in our seats and who our audience is. We need to meet them where they are, and we need to take them beyond that. But that is basic. That is very basic. And we must go beyond that. We must teach these children 21st century skills. I know Robert Marzano and Bloom's hierarchy of taxonomy have been around a long time, but they've been around for a long time because they're valid. They have great practices, and we need to go back to those. But we need to go beyond them. Our kids need 21st century skills like higher order thinking skills, deductive reasoning, problem solving. The days are gone where you have to memorize what's in a textbook, regurgitate it on a test, and use it later in life. Our kids don't need that. Our kids need the skills that when they don't know something, they know how to find it, they know how to decipher it, they know how to pick it apart, and they know how to apply it to a real life situation. And that's my vision for the children of this district.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next question. What ideas do you have to continue to address the high school dropout rates and falling SAT scores? And Ms. Johnson, would you start, please?
You always know you're going to get called on when it's the toughies, if that's the way your life always has gone. I read a really interesting article a couple of weeks ago, and I'm certain every one of you were caught by it. There was a dropout issue in one of the districts real close to us, Orangeburg-Wilkinson. And you know what those folks did? They went, the superintendent, the district employees, and the board, and they went to students' homes, and they knocked on the doors, and they said, hey, Christopher, you're out of school. We need you back. This is why it's important to your future. Can you imagine the power that that would be for someone to have another adult come and say, pull you back in, let's go? Of course, that's a cost-free sort of program. We haven't been exercising cost-free much lately, but there's a lot of merit to that kind of a program. So that's the first thing that I would do. The interesting thing about the SAT scores is we've dropped, 71 points, 40 points just in this year alone in our district. Remember, the SAT test takers are kids that intend to be going on to college. So this is extremely troubling because there's a huge group of our kids that don't necessarily take the SAT scores. So we're talking about a big group of kids in high school that are underperforming. Now, there are some high schools that actually offer SAT training, but we're not talking about just boosting your scores so that you can take the test and do well. We're talking about back to the potatoes. These kids should have been getting it from middle school and from high school. And that's where we've gone back to the core curriculum. We initiated it. We'll be following up with it. And in fact, professional development is starting to go into that realm. For those of us in the 50s range, we all know core curriculum, reading, math, science, and those things are pretty in English. Those are the things that will make a difference. But I still go back to, if you want to make contact with a kid who is completely disenfranchised, do the one-on-one. And our cost is minimal and the payout is huge. Thank you again.
Thank you. Ms. Brill.
Actually, the SATs, the decrease was 2%, and there was a slow, steady decline in that, as we have noticed. The good news is that more students are graduating on time, more students are securing scholarship money, less students are dropping out, and there is a sharp decline in discipline cases. We are working with kids that are at risk. There's a new charter high school program, which James Manning has been part of their board and very instrumental, working with kids that maybe do not want to go to college. So the charter high school is a good program for them. We are working on and studying a student career center. This is to help students finish high school with perhaps cosmetology, a chef training, a nursing program. And so this way, when they finish high school, they can go directly into the workforce. There are many options and opportunities that we are working on as a school district, and we're aware of what the issues and concerns are, and trust me, we are working on it.
Thank you. Ms. Richter?
I have a real passion about this issue because I think that dropouts are a symptom that we failed years ago. There are many studies out there, and you hear the urban legend all the time that, or the urban myth that states predict the number of prisons they'll need by the number of students who cannot read in the 4th grade. And there simply isn't any basis to that. However, there are multiple studies out there that if children by grade 3 cannot read on grade level, that there's a strong correlation that those students are in danger of dropping out. Something important happens in K through 2 and even before, and that's that we're teaching children to learn to read. In 3rd grade, we shift, and they're expected to know how to read. And then we shift to reading to learn. Well, if I haven't mastered learning to read, and if I don't have a strong enough foundation in that, I am set up for failure. I'm going to sit in a classroom, and I'm going to be given content, and I'm going to be expected to be able to read it and understand it. With my teacher's support and with scaffolding, I understand. But our teachers are working very hard to make sure these children can read and decipher the content when they don't have reading skills yet. So I think we need to do more for these children before 3rd grade, before that shift occurs. Likewise, on the other end of the spectrum with the SAT scores, these are our kids who their goal is to go to college. That's their dream. They've dreamed the dream. And we need to make sure we're providing the training that they need. Some of it isn't content. Some of it isn't knowledge. It's simply test-taking skills. When do I answer a question versus when do I not? And at Spring Valley, I spent a lot of time with my magnet students on this. I had an expert come in and train them on it. His name was Larry Mills, and they knew how to take that test. And we need to make sure they have those skills as well. Let's not forget the kids in the middle. The kids in the middle need to have their passion ignited. We need to find something that interests them, and we need to foster their dreams.
Thank you. Ms. Corley.
Yes. I know firsthand, actually, there was an incident yesterday in my community with a young man, but what I want to talk about is when I see, and I walk around in my community often, and I see young men that have dropped out of school, the end result is basically hopelessness. They tend to, once they've gotten off track, it is so difficult to get them back on track again. A lot of it is stemming from incarceration that they've had. So basically, once they've gotten a record, basically life is almost over for these young people. What that ends up being is basically that child will either continue to depend on the parent, or that child will be in and out of trouble pretty much for the rest of their lives. Again, I see this firsthand. The things that I would like to do is to actually create community centers where it would be convenient for these children to have access to computers so that they can, certainly we have the virtual schools, and maybe go out. I saw this on the news the other day where this particular district went out and knocked on the doors. They went looking for the children that had dropped out of school. I'm willing to go out and look for them and get them back and find out what's the problem. What is it that we can do to re-enter you back into the school district? And get your diploma, because basically without a high school diploma, there's just almost no hope, because it's very difficult to get a job without a high school diploma. So I would like to knock on doors and try to re-enter our students back in the district again, if we can find where they are.
Thank you. Ms. Elkins.
Yes, when we talk about the dropout rate, it's very dear to my heart, because as a first grade teacher for 7 years, I had the opportunity to meet with students that came into my classroom who could not identify letters in their name, who could not write or read. And I had the opportunity to teach those students the letters in the alphabet, how to put those letters together to make words, and how to read. So when we talk about the dropout rate, we're not talking about theory here. We're talking about practical skills that teachers like myself work with and deal with every day of students. What we have to do is get those students motivated, get them excited about learning to read and reading to learn. And how do we do that? What we do is we bring in things into the classroom that spark their interest to get them excited about learning. If they love basketball, then we bring in books on that topic. If they like cars, we bring in books on that. And then we show them how to look at those pictures and how to make words. We're just using different reading strategies to get those students on point, because we know if we lose them and we do not build that foundation early in life, of course, research shows that if they're not reading by third grade, they're going to drop out. So what do we do as a district? What do we do as administrators? We hire the best early childhood development teachers, and we make sure we follow up with those teachers to make sure that they're teaching those skills for those students to move to that very next level. We incorporate businesses to share and to donate books so the students can form that library at their home. The students have to see us reading. They have to see us excited about reading. Therefore, we fast forward to SAT scores. As we know, in different states, SAT scores are based on the state where you're in. It's mandated that all students take the SAT, but in South Carolina, the students have the opportunity to take it at their free will. So when we're talking about test scores, the students have an opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson.
If we were to believe the data states that suggests that the dropout rate in District 2 is, as Ms. Brill alluded to, less than 2%, if we were to believe the data as it is reported. And so I think even 2% is still too many, but compared to many of the other districts in terms of where we are with the number of students who have dropped out, the data represents an improving number that's very small. And so I think listening to all of the persons on the panel, the ideas and suggestions that they are indicating, I think are wonderful. I think one of the keys, I'll go back to what I said earlier, and that is that when students get disengaged and feel that they become disenfranchised and that the district or the teachers or others are not interested in them, they drop out mentally long before they ever drop out of the school physically. And so the challenge is to make sure that we continue to keep students engaged. Engaged how? Engaged in learning, recognizing the different learning styles, as I said earlier, to ensure that those students are in fact active participants in their own learning. Second thing, as it relates to the SAT score. The SAT score drop is a tremendous concern of the district, and a sense of urgency has to kick in. But I don't want it to be the only measurement that we are concerned about. We also need to be concerned about the district's performance on standardized tests that are being administered by the state, looking at how those students are performing on the pass, making sure that we're doing those things in those areas that will improve performance on the state assessment as well as the SAT. Looking at and doing an intensive review of student achievement data, not only by grade level, but also by subject level, to determine what subjects and what grades are having the most difficulty, and then develop very specific, targeted strategies to address those students in those subjects, in those grades. Remember I said to you earlier, students who are in the CDC program, the early childhood program at Spears Creek, once they take those standardized tests, are outperforming our students who have not enrolled in those programs by 10 and sometimes 15% higher. Making sure they do that in early childhood is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, what innovative ideas do you have for growing the district? And Ms. Corley, would you start, please?
Yes, ma'am. When I was on the board, one of the things that we certainly invest a lot in was basically technology. I'm one that works with technology on a daily basis. Without the technology, basically, it would be very, very difficult for me to do my job. In preparing our students for the future, certainly we would have to continue to invest in technology because, number one, technology tends to change from year to year. We would have to go out and look for the best type of technology that's out there that's available right now, so that our students, as many of the panels already said, to continue to engage your students in the learning environment. We know that the chalkboard and the whiteboard and so on and so forth are pretty much the thing of the past to a certain extent. But then again, I don't want to get so far into technology that we forget to teach our children the basic skills of reading, writing, and math. Sometimes we may have to, depending on the student, you may have to go back to the basic way of training and teaching our children. Certainly, also teaching them to be more critical thinkers, because again, in the workforce, that's something that the workforce is certainly looking for, is to make sure that our students can basically think on their own. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure that we have the latest and the greatest technology, and certainly, you know, having our teachers trained to be able to use that technology in the classroom as well.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson.
I am not for growing the district. Let me just say that up front. I am not for growing the district. Our district has grown more than 10,000 students in the past 10 years. So if anyone is for growing our district anymore, be my guest, have at it. When you grow our district, here's what it costs. It means more schools, it means more bond referendums, it means more rezoning, it means more displacement. And having gone through that experience before on this board, that's the last thing that I want to do, is grow our district. I think what we need to do is to be able to manage the growth that's going to occur within this district naturally. Our challenge is to make sure that those students who are going to come in, those transient students that are moving into our district, the in-migration of students moving into our community, that we're able to manage them in an environment that will ensure that the quality of our education doesn't deteriorate, not that we're looking to grow and add any more students to our district. And I'll leave the rest of my time to anyone else who would like to talk about how they'd like to grow the district.
I appreciate your comments. I agree with you. We don't need to grow anymore. We're growing at about 770 new students this year. That computes into one new school a year. And so we have to plan for that growth. We have to secure the property. We have to do the infrastructure planning. We have to hire the teachers. It is quite a challenge to keep up with the growth that we've had now. I don't know how many school districts can say that they've built about 3 or 4 schools in the last 5 or 6 years. I think our growth is amazing, and it's something we should be proud of. And you should be proud of Richland, too, for the planning that we have done to get all this work done. And also of our fiscal policy is really very sound. We are putting more money away in our fund balance, which is money for a rainy day. We have increased our per pupil funding from $18 to $25 each year. We did away with the sports tryouts for kids in the interest of knowing that, you know, some kids can't afford to try out and then participate. So I think with sound planning that we are doing the best to manage our growth. I think that should have been your question. That managing our growth is a big part of what we do, and we're very honored to have a very strong finance department in Richland, too.
Thank you. Ms. Richter?
I'm also not interested in growing our district. What I'm interested in is doing what's best for the children we already have. And we have the talented teachers to do that. The problem, from my perspective, is with all of the state and federal mandates and requirements placed on them, as well as the new Common Core standards, I think they're overwhelmed. We have technology initiatives, we have SHLECTI, we have so many things being thrown at them. And I would like to see our teachers have the time to focus on their children and the needs of their children. I would also like to see us focus on our kids in the middle. We have services for children who struggle. We have magnet programs for children who are gifted and who excel. But we have a whole group of children in the middle. And I was one of those kids. And I had a teacher in 8th grade believe in me. And she ignited a passion in me for learning. She gave me confidence to succeed. And I was on fire after that. And when I graduated from high school, I had taken all honors courses and AP courses. And all it took was that teacher believing in me. That's what I think we need to do. We need to believe in our children. We need to make sure we're giving them the skills that they need. I'm going back to 21st century skills again. But let's work on the children that we already have. Let's believe in them. Let's focus on what their interests are and how we can help them turn that into a career or a college major. But we need to help them see the dream for themselves, because some of them can't see that dream. And we know if we believe in them, they can realize it.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Well, I wrote down immediately, why is growing so good? I mean, what woman wants to grow 10 pounds? I mean, think about it right away. What is it? So I assumed that the question meant, how are we going to grow in excellence? But let me remind you all in the audience that while we keep talking about explosive growth and the scariness and we need to budget and plan, remember that the district works with an outside consultant, and they do a 10-year facility plan for us, and they monitor the growth and they forecast what they have the growth to be. So knowing that our growth is being forecasted, we're really not normally surprised. It would be extraordinary for us to be surprised when we have a facility plan and it's someone that's intimately involved with our affairs. So let's be clear about why we're spending the money to have a facility plan and plot and forecast our growth. The growth forecast was just readjusted. It was lower just a little bit in light of all the rapid growth that we've just had. Let me remind you, too, of what the actual role of a board is. We've heard all of the candidates talk about wanting to reduce class size, retain teacher quality, spend with thought, get the technology in the classrooms, get the community involved in the education. And I ask you this, who wouldn't say that and who wouldn't want that? What parent doesn't want that? What teacher doesn't want to be able to do those things in the classroom? What board member wouldn't want to be able to do that? More importantly, we should be asking, how can these things specifically be done? In fact, how can we restore excellence for which our district is known? Our school board is responsible for answering those questions. In fact, I make a commitment that I'm willing and capable of doing that for you. What does a school board member do? They're charged with the budget. They need to know finance inside and out. I have a finance degree. I've practiced my finance for years. I'm currently in a real estate development doing neighborhood plans. I manage about 87 different accounts. I know finance. Managing our budget is key. We need to also determine, secondly, what our district's educational standards and goals are. I'm so sorry, I cannot read that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Elkins.
I welcome the growth to the school district because when I work with kids, I have a compassion for kids. So the more kids, the merrier. So I'm excited. I'm a teacher at heart. So I welcome more students coming in for growth because that gives me the opportunity to build relationships with students. That gives me the opportunity to help students move to the next level. That gives me an opportunity to be a role model and to create future leaders. However, when we're talking about growth, we can also talk about growing our teachers. We can take our teachers from good to great. How do we do that? We encourage our teachers to build a culture of caring, understanding, trust, and respect with the students that's in their class. We pull more out of the students that they're willing to give us because we know they have more inside of them. We connect the classroom standards with real life experiences. That's how we grow our teachers. Well, how do we grow our administrators? We'll make sure that our administrators who are representing us are visionaries. Our administrators are instructional leaders. Our administrators have the technology skills that they're incorporating and they're expecting us to have as teachers. How do we do that with the board? Well, we grow our board because we tell our board, we want to see you more. We want more board members who are community members, board members who are approachable, visible, board members who are going to return telephone calls, board members who are also going to come out and get involved with the students inside of the school, not just come at the beginning of the school year, the middle of the school year, the end of the school year to collect an award. So we want board members who are visionaries, who see a bright future for all of our students, who are engaged in the student's life. By coming to those football games, coming to those soccer games, walking the halls every day like we do as teachers, and getting to know those students, that's the growth I would like to see.
Thank you. Okay, question number 5. What are your top priorities for the board? And Ms. Elkins, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. My top priority for the board, number 1, is to incorporate those programs such as CATE, as I indicated earlier. Being a former CATE teacher, I taught home economics for 10 years, which is now called Family and Consumer Sciences. As I stated earlier, our students are coming to us, but they are hands-on students. They're in the 21st century. They need to move around. They're not traditional students, and not all are deciding to attend college. So we need to bring back into the classroom, back into the schools, back into the district, those programs so that can get students excited. Also, if you go back and you look at research, it indicates that students can graduate straight from high school with the basic skills and still be hired at Michelin and make $30 an hour. So what we need to do is focus on those students who are hands-on. Bring in those technology programs, welding, shop, computer technology classes, barbering, home economics. We also want to go back to those STEM programs, as I shared earlier. We have schools who are incorporating STEM programs, but they're missing some of the other schools. So we need to make sure that we bring in all of those innovative and motivated programs to enhance the learning of all of our students in all of the schools.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. I think that early childhood education for me is the top priority, because I absolutely believe that if we start early and we are successful with our students, they will be successful in their educational experience in our school. So I'd like to see more district-sponsored programs. I'd like to see the district become more engaged with early childhood providers that are in the community and engage them in the learning process. I think the early learning foundation is critical for the future success. The second one, I would agree with Ms. Elkins, actually. I think that career and technology education is vitally important. That's why Ms. Brill and myself and other members of the board approved the budget to develop the Student Center, Student Educational Center, Career Center, because I think it's going to address what Ms. Richter spoke about earlier, and that's those average students for whom the four-year college experience may not be a reality, but certainly does not have to be the fact that they don't get in the end of the road. Third issue I think is critically important for me. That is to make sure that we have a wholesome, healthy school climate, an environment where teaching and learning can take place. My job as a board member, as Ms. Johnson referenced a moment ago, my job as a board member is to make sure that we hire the best teachers, we provide them with the best salaries, we provide the resources they need, we provide the best buildings and facilities to teach in and work and learn in, and then we give the students the resources they need to be successful. Those are my top three priorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Richter.
My top priority is meeting our students where they are when they come in our classrooms and taking them to the next level while not killing our teachers. I think it's very important that we see that all children are different. We also need to embrace that all of our schools have their own personalities, and that's a strength. We should embrace that. We should celebrate our differences. To meet our students' needs and to take them to the next level, I think, I'm going to use the word data again, but I think we need to analyze the data. We need to identify the needs of the students in that building, in that classroom. We do not need a one-size-fits-all approach to things. I think that we need to then do a needs assessment for our teachers. We do not need to assume that they don't know how to address these issues. We have professional people employed in this district with a lot of educational background, and we need to use that to our advantage. We need to put heads together and let the talent solve the problems. I think we need to believe in our students, we need to believe in our teachers, and we need to support them along the way, and we need to make sure we're meeting all of their needs.
Thank you. Ms. Brill.
It's important to me as a school board member and community volunteer that everyone know that you can reach out and connect with me at any time. I'm available. I like to meet with parents. We can meet for coffee and you can share your concerns with me. There have been a lot of issues and change over the last few years, and I want you to know that you can call me and I will respond to your concerns. I think that's the important role for a school board member, is for you to understand that we are here for you. We just don't make these decisions nilly-willy or without deep consideration and a lot of thought. We are changing. Our demographics have changed. Our poverty level has changed. Our per pupil funding is down at a 10-year low. This year we got $2,012 for funding for children from the state. That is an all-time 10-year low. And so I think that some of our planning around this has been phenomenal. That we had to make cuts in our budget to provide for this. As you're all aware, Act 388 changed the funding formula. We went from a stable income source, which was property taxes, to a penny sales tax. And that was enacted about 5 years ago. So it's, our responsibility to provide the best education we can with the resources that we have. And those are my goals and my vision for the future.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
I got through two of the things I wanted to tell you all about what the trustees' role was. I talked to you about the budget, and then I mentioned to you that the district's educational standards and goals were also decided at the board level. That would mean that the board, in working with our superintendent, would publish the goals for the district for the year. It would also mean that our board would review our superintendent's performance. Of course, we're starting in the third year of our superintendent's tenure, and we have not yet seen that review. So we'll all be anxiously awaiting that and hope that another year doesn't need to pass. The third thing that the board oversees is the reviewing and the evaluation of all of the district's instructional programs. That would mean professional development. It would mean our magnet programs. Remember, most of us grew up with the idea that a magnet program was for the highest of achievers. A significant number, in fact, a majority of our magnet programs are specialized learning programs. They're for programs that do already fit the bill of kids in just different learning ways. They learn because they like to work on a computer. They learn because they're interested in science and technology. Do you see what I mean? So we have a lot of those programs already in place. You all probably have heard how near and dear out in the public the CAPE program is to me. I'm particularly interested in the industrial arts programs. I see that that is key for so many of our kids, but the reason I see that we have a good number of kids not participating is because our kids are going to high school and they know that they're not really that interested in going to a four-year program. You may have even had a child yourself being in that situation, but the whole time they're in high school, are they getting any feedback to talk about what the other options are? So we really need to start the CAPE program education where that's a viable future for these kids in the middle school. They need to understand this is what a woodworker makes. I have some signs, some campaign signs being made that are computerized signs cut out of wood by current kids and kids that graduated from the program. If you all could see what these woodworkers do, it involves so many skills on so many levels. Now the question is, whoops, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Corley.
Yes. Again, I would make absolutely sure that, and this is one of our responsibilities, is to make sure that the community is always, we always communicate with the community as to the things that we're doing to improve education of our children. Also, I would like to, when children are in trouble, one of the things that I saw when I was on the board was that a lot of times they didn't know what to do. So again, making sure that we communicate effectively to the parents as to what the procedures are whenever their children are in trouble, and not make them, sometimes, you know, when I've spoken to many other parents, they felt kind of lost as to, you know, what shall I do, where should I go, you know, so on and so forth, even though the letters had came home. So I would like to see more communication, certainly with these parents and also with the community as to the different things that we would be doing in the district. Also paying very, very close attention to the budget, because with the Act 388, basically at any point in time, if businesses are not making sales, there is certainly a potential for the district to have a shortfall for that particular year. Also, making absolutely sure that we provided the training and development for our teachers. When I was on the board again, I made sure that I attended many of those training and development classes. Also, so that way they will be able to continue to engage your students in the learning process. So again, communication is number one.
Thank you. Before we go to the candidates' closing statements, did we have any written questions submitted? Well, we can go ahead and do the closing statements while we're waiting on those questions. So that means, Ms. Richter, we will start with you and come back this way.
I want to thank you again for coming tonight. I am dedicated to ensuring that our students receive the top-notch education that they deserve. As a teacher, I know what it is like to walk in your shoes and juggle the demands of district initiatives and state and federal mandates, all while doing your best to educate the children sitting before you. From an administrator's perspective, I understand how challenging it can be to implement those state and federal standards in a meaningful way, while still addressing the needs of the students in the entire division. In my role as a mother, I want my children and all of the children in District 2 to have teachers who challenge them where they are educationally and help them grow. The business of education is full of many challenges, and I want to be a part of the solutions. I feel with my experience, I'm qualified to serve as a school board member. Please vote for me, Jennifer Richter, on November the 6th. I am the last name on the entire ballot, so please save a vote for the end. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
Johnson falls in the middle, so that helps. School board issues sometimes can go by the wayside with parents, because when our children are in school, we are so focused on the issues that are happening at the individual school. I certainly know that was the case with me until about 2.5 years ago. I assure you that when I made the switch to the district level and began attending the district meetings, it became a passion. In the same way that I tenaciously hung on to teaching middle school kids in Sunday school for 17 years, in the same way that when I decided to be involved with Habitat, it wasn't enough to be Saturday. I've chaired and built several homes. What I'm telling you is, when I make a commitment, it's a commitment. It's great that I've got a finance degree. It's great that I'm a mom. I grew up as an Army brat. I've moved around. This is my home. I've lived here 20 years. Prior to that, I never lived any place more than 2 years. So does it matter that I didn't grow up in Richland too? Are you kidding? How many people are Army brats and can say that they went to 11 schools, right? When you go to vote and you make a difference in education, you seek the excellent point for every student. You do that by acting responsibly, with accountability, with honest and open communication, recognizing there are needs for confidentiality sometimes, and using technology with empirical evidence to support the outcomes. And with that, we will restore our district education system. And I ask you to vote for me, Stevie Johnson. It would come as no surprise that I find myself an excellent candidate for you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Richland School District 2 is a different place today than it was just 8 years ago. And as a result, it's now much more challenging than ever to maintain the high level of student achievement for all 26,000 students. We're doing it for most, but we must do it for all. Some have looked at this challenge and have chosen one of 3 options. Some have blamed the victims and done nothing else but blame them. Others have chosen to leave our district or abandon ship. However, I've chosen to stay and work for the success of all 26,000 students. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity tonight to be here. I think educating 26,000 students in Richland School District 2 is serious business. Being on the school board is hard work. This is not a popularity contest. I think the role of a school board member is to represent every student in our schools, to represent every school in our district, to represent every teacher in every classroom, and to represent every family that lives in the Northeast Columbia area. So I think the question to consider is, does the person that you're going to elect to the school board truly want to work with the district, or is that individual looking to work against the district and those teachers, those principals, those schools, and those families? There is no middle ground for this in our district. My past 4 years, I've attempted to demonstrate to you that I represented every student, every teacher, every school, and every family that I've had the opportunity to represent. I will continue to do that if given the opportunity for re-election. My name is Calvin, C-A-L-V-I-N. I'm the 4th on the ballot with 3 open slots. The C stands for courage. The A in my name stands for the ability. The L stands for leadership. The V stands for vision. The I stands for initiative. And the N stands for no nonsense. Thank you very much.
Ms. Elkins.
Give a man a fish, he would eat for a day. teach him how to fish, and he would eat for a lifetime. I'm a lifetime learner. I'm a native of Columbia, South Carolina, where I reside in the Northeast area in Magnolia Hall. I've been an educator for 20 plus years. I've been a nurse, a lawyer, a friend, a doctor. I've been all of that because as an educator, we wear many hats. I have touched the lives of many students. I have thousands of stories to share with you guys about the relationship, the positive relationship that I have with teachers, parents, and students. If you walk around and you come to my meet and greets and my events, you will see a sea of teachers there, students, and parents, because as they say, Ms. Elkins, I got your back. I'm excited about this campaign, and I will work hard for everyone's support. I will always be approachable, visible, available, and will return calls to the people in District 2. For an example, when we have car problems, we're always seeking out and looking for the best auto mechanic to repair our car. Now we have educational concerns. Come on, teachers, parents, students, educators, let's seek out the best, the qualified, the caring, the compassionate school board member. I am that person. I care about all of my students, and I still keep in contact. I'm Monica Elkins, and I'm the best candidate for District 2 School Board, and I am the change that you need and you want to see.
Thank you. Ms. Corley.
Yes. As a former board member, I bring a current thorough understanding of the district and its policies and procedures. I have many years of hands-on experience as a former board member, and also during that tenure, the things that you are receiving, you're having the opportunity to do now is due to I'm sorry. The things that you are able now to be able to, I'm sorry, I just got a brain, I'm sorry, I apologize. But anyways, I was here to approve the 10-year facility study. I completed 4 new schools on time and within the budget, and I maintained the teacher-student ratio. Also, during my tenure, the district received a AAA bond rating. So therefore, you're reaping all the benefits from the prior 4 years that I served here on the board. I've always put students first. I've always put parents first. If you call me anytime, day or night, I would always answer your calls. I would always be there for you. No matter what time of night that you would call me, I will answer your call. And if I can't answer your call at that time, I guarantee you I'll give you a call back. Again, I'm a former board member and I understand the policies and procedures, and I'm asking for your vote on November the 6th. Again, my name is Regina Lyles Corley. I'm number 2.
Ms. Brill.
And I'm number 1 on the ballot. And I want to thank my sister Anna for coming tonight. It's very nice of you to take time out of your busy day. And I want to thank all of you for being here. It's very special. You know, elections are special times for me. It's a chance to reconnect with people that I haven't seen for a long, long time. You know, I've been running for a few years now. And public service is what I do, helping people, whether it's potholes and drainage, and now it's children and education. Whatever it is, I'm interested in what's happening, and I'm interested in making a difference in our lives. It's a great pleasure for me to have served on this board. It's a pleasure for me to have worked with the people that I've worked with. It's a constant learning curve. I'd be less than honest to say that we haven't had some challenges. The rezoning of the high schools was certainly an issue that was very contentious. And we went out into the communities. We met with folks at Spring Valley High School. We met at Rockbridge Club. We listened to what the concerns were, and we brought it back to the board and said, you know, these are things we have to consider. These are people that are unhappy, and they're unhappy for these reasons. We brought in a new superintendent, and there's some concerns about her policy. It's change. It's things. We've had Dr. Hefner for 16 years. We have to be realistic about managing change and managing your expectations and how you feel and what you think. It's my role to connect with you and to be your advocate. So please feel free to call on me if I can help you. And thank you for your support in the past. And thank you for your support in the future. You can vote for 3 people, and I'm only asking for 1 of your votes.
Thank you. We have gotten 4 questions. Because of our time, let's keep our responses to about 1.5 minutes. But I think these are all good questions, so I don't want to not try to answer them. And let's just start with you, Ms. Brill, and we'll go down the line. What would you consider to be adequate cause for opposing recommendations coming from district administrators?
Say that again. Adequate cause.
I'm reading it the way it's
Adequate
written.
cause for what?
What would you consider to be adequate cause for opposing recommendations coming from district administrators?
Well, I would welcome that. In fact, we did a climate study recently. The board initiated it. It was online. I don't know for teachers and administrators here if you were aware of the climate study. It was an opportunity for you to be very candid about the way you think and the way you feel about things that are going on in the district. Those comments went into the office that sponsored it, and they are confidential, anonymous, and we will be analyzing the data. The information will only come back to the board. So I think if that's something you're asking about, I want to let you know that we have not gotten that data back, but it should be back by October 22nd.
Ms. Corley?
I would say just come, if you have posing any type question towards for the board, just come to the board. Sometimes maybe we could call like a town hall meeting so that you can voice any of your concerns without being scrutinized about anything, any type of issue that you have. Again, I have listening ears. I'm always open for new ideas, and if it's something you want to talk to me one-on-one, I could do that, and then I'll take it back to the board, and we'll see where we go from there.
Okay, Ms. Elkins?
Again, when we're talking about administrators, being a former administrator, I know the fear that administrators as well as teachers have of going to the board members. And I think that fear has a lot to do with the interpersonal skills of many of our board members. They're not approachable. They're not involved in the school setting, in the community. So with that being said, we don't know, and I say we because I am an educator, we don't know how to approach them. We don't know what to say to them, and we don't know what the recommendations or the outcome is going to be when we're totally honest with them. So that's what I'm saying to you all today. Be the change that you want to see. Elect folks who are like you, educators, who understand, who's been in the trenches, who understand, so you can feel that sense of community. You can feel that comfort of going in, talking, and sharing things, and know that your concerns and the concerns of the students are going to be addressed in a confidential manner without any repercussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson?
I think every 2 weeks the school board opposes recommendations from the district. When we have appeal hearings from students who have been in violation of a discipline act, we get those appeals, and usually the recommendation it always is to expel those students from school. And so we have to make determination about whether or not we're going to uphold that. And those who've attended board meetings have heard us on multiple occasions offer alternative decisions to the recommendations of the district staff. I think common sense is what I would use, what I try to use. 30 years of my experience working is another step I try to employ. And finally, how does it impact the overall success and performance of our school district? Finally, looking at the unique circumstances that that particular case and that particular recommendation is asking us to consider. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
What do we consider adequate for an administrator to bring an initiative to the board's attention? Pose a question. Well, to be honest, why would there ever be an issue that the board wouldn't want to entertain at some level? Now, that being the case, remember, if we went back to what I had been talking about on ACT, Acting to Restore Excellence in Education, If we had been practicing as a board accountability and on communication transparency, we would already have that open dialogue continuing. In fact, could you even imagine a utopia as such where the board continued to do feedback so that you knew issues that were coming up, so that the things that did not need to remain confidential that are discussed, you would know about? Would you not have loved to have known more about the new Student Activity Center, from the $500,000, the $40 million, all these investments, besides just one little February blurb when somebody presented it? So accountability, communication, and effective use of technology, guys, and we have it covered. We would not have a problem.
Thank you. Ms. Richter.
I think right now, on some level, there's a trust issue. And I think some people are afraid to present the honest data to the school board. I've been at board meetings where data was presented, and it looked glowing. But when you teased it apart and you looked at discrepancies, you could tell that that wasn't raw data that had been compiled and put together. So I think trust is a very big issue. Confidentiality is very important to me. And I think without open dialogue where the person who comes to you feels protected, that you are not going to violate their trust, I think until we have that, I don't think we're going to move forward. We are supposed to be a family. When I grew up, it was the Richland 2 family. We need to find that family again.
Thank you. And Ms. Richter, we'll just start with you and come back this way. Teachers are feeling that they have less and less control over decisions about their own classrooms, such as school supply list, field study opportunities, technology integration, and discipline. What will you do to help restore teachers' voice and input in district decision making?
I've walked in your shoes. I know what it's like to not want to speak up. Fortunately, my time in Richland 2, both as a teacher and an administrator, I had principals that I could always confide in, and I hope you do too. However, I know those issues are there, and I think that when you feel a lack of control, it's because you're overwhelmed. I think teachers have had so much thrown at them. You're juggling, and all you want to do is follow your passion and teach these children. So I would propose that we treat our teachers and our administrators as professionals, and we let them do the job we've hired them to do. I think they need to have a place where they can speak honestly, whether it's anonymously or not, because many of them have communicated to me personally that they do fear retaliation, or they do fear if they ask for help and say they don't understand something or don't know how to do something, that it will be looked upon, as a failure, and it's a weakness. So I would propose that we set forth avenues where teachers can communicate honestly. This survey, there's been much discussion that people don't truly think it really will be confidential, that there's some way they can trace it back. Whether that fear is valid or not, it's there. And our perception is our reality. And that's why I think we need to start working on trust again. And we need to let our teachers be the professionals that they are.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Several years ago, and up until about a year and a half ago, we had opportunities where the teachers would gather in their individual schools and they would talk and exchange ideas, much like a group of women would do with a Bible study, or coaches would do after with their team after a game. Those types of experiences turned to be invaluable. The teachers sort of vented, they shared ideas, they enriched and supported each other. And unfortunately, those meetings are not occurring. We do have a lot of scheduled meetings going on, but the teachers would love to have the opportunity to hang. I can tell you the most difficult part that I hear from teachers, and I can tell you it would sure be tough on my personality, and that is, remember, a teacher is there all day with maybe a period off. versus most of us go to our jobs and we zip out for lunch, or we run to the post office to pick up stamps like I might have done today, and pick up bottled water for you all to grab. Please make sure you grab one. What I'm saying is a teacher is confined in that space, and without interaction with other teachers bouncing ideas off, I could see at that time, thanks. Without the ideas to bounce off of each other, they lose, it's hard for them to keep perspective, and they can lose their enthusiasm. That's such a simple, again, I keep going back to these low-cost, common sense approaches where we've given the teachers a lack of voice. That comes back to macro managing versus micromanaging, and really none of us know anybody that likes to be micromanaged. Macro management is by far superior. We all know that, we all love it, and anyone who says otherwise is usually saying it for some bizarre reason. So give our teachers back the control and give them the abilities to meet and congregate.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. There's no question that I started the evening talking about restoring trust, and I'm going to end the evening talking about restoring trust, because I think that's absolutely critically important. It's disheartening to hear comments being made that after the efforts being made by the board to have a climate survey done that is being done in the strictest confidentiality, that there would be people who are still concerned about the fact that it's not being done confidentially. My goal is to make sure that when the results of this survey comes back, more than 3,000 employees of our district who were asked to participate, and more than 57% of the teachers participated, more than 70% of the district staff, other employees, of the district participated, that the results of that survey and the efforts of this board will demonstrate to this community that they can trust this board to take action based on the data as opposed to speculation that we have been given. And you can be assured, as chair of the board, that the superintendent's evaluation will be done by November of this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Elkins?
Yes, as a teacher and a school administrator, I witnessed firsthand that teachers have lost that trust in the administration as well as in the school board. They've lost that trust because of the diversity that we see on the school board. After all, our demographics are almost 70% African American. However, our school board does not represent that. So when we're talking about teacher lack, is there someone on the school board they feel comfortable going to, talking with, who they feel they can trust, that they know that there's not going to be any repercussions? Do they have a school leader in the school who's a visionary, who's a leader, also someone that they can trust? And also, do they have someone in the leading position who's going to allow them the autonomy to teach the way the students know how to learn, teach on those learning styles, teach non-traditional? We still have administrators who want that traditional teaching, but our students are not traditional students. So as teachers, we want that autonomy back so we can teach the way the students learn. We can bring parents in, show the parents how to teach the students to learn and to grow. That's what we need. We need that trust. We need confidence to know that we're being appreciated for all the hard work that we do. Because as educators, we come in, we stay late, and we want that respect and that trust back that we had once upon a time, that when a teacher called home, the parents respected that, and they came to the school, and we were back to that village. Because after all, it takes a village to raise a child.
Thank you. Ms. Corley?
Yes. The only thing that I'm going to say is you teach, and I'll provide the tools that you need so that you could be successful in your classroom. I'm a board member, I was a former board member, and that was my position. My position was not to be in the classroom. I was not a teacher. I was not teaching your students. Our positions are to make policy and procedures and to communicate with the community, as well as set budget goals and so on and so forth. Basically, you teach.
Thank you. Ms. Brill?
I feel like teachers need to feel like they can be candid with their principals and let them know the issues and concerns that they have, or if they feel that they've lost some control in the classroom or control over their destiny. You were talking about school supplies and that sort of thing. I think the board made an effort to standardize what we were spending on school supplies, and so that might be the change that question is talking about. And I would recommend that the superintendent meet with the principals the way the superintendents have met with principals in the past and listen to them. I think it was like every 2 weeks, listen to what's happening in your own school and bring back the concerns and then bring those concerns to the school board. But listen, teachers are free to communicate with school board members. I keep a lot of conversations confidential and let you know that I am concerned and that I will follow up and look for the right avenues for solutions for our personnel. You're the boots on the ground. Very common expression, but without you, our kids will not make the progress or reach their potential or have the future that we envisioned. My favorite comment is by past president, former president, or deceased President Kennedy. He said that we all cherish our children's future, and that's something I think that we all have in common. We can agree on that.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 more questions. Why or why not do you believe pass scores are important? And let's start in the middle with you, Ms. Elkins, and then go to Mr. Jackson.
Absolutely. I feel that pass scores are important because what it does is it gives us a benchmark of where our students are. And then it should motivate us and encourage us to go back, look at their scores, and reteach those subject matters that students are having difficulty with. Pass scores also is a reflection on how well the teacher taught. Therefore, it encourages the teacher to go back, to reteach, to motivate, to learn what they need to do with those students to get them to the next level. However, I don't want us to look at pass scores and evaluate a teacher because after all, sometimes students come in. They may have had a bad night that night, or maybe they don't have those test-taking skills, or maybe they just don't feel like doing their best that day. So a teacher should not be judged based on her pass scores, but it should just be a benchmark to let the teacher know where the students are and how she can get them to the very next level.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson?
I think that pass scores are simply one tool of measurement and of measuring student performance in our schools. It's one tool. And it's one tool that's a very vital and critical tool, unfortunately, that the state uses to measure the success and performance not only of our students, but also of our schools, and ultimately those that are in classrooms teaching our students. And so that's why they're important, because they're used in such a dramatic and can be used in such a dramatic and drastic manner. Unfortunately, sometimes they can also be used in a punitive way. However, I think in addition to pass scores, we want to continue to make sure that in classroom assessments and evaluation of how students are performing continue to get the opportunity to be used so that teachers can develop their lesson plans to ensure that what students need to learn, they're doing it and the different learning styles are being considered as they attempt to address every need of every student in their class. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
I was one of those moms that didn't get all bent out of shape about an individual grade. And in fact, from the time my boys were in middle school, I didn't check and do their homework. I instilled a sense in them that they were going to start applying themselves and learn how to apply themselves. And it would be a fair statement to say we had some rocky times on that, and there were plenty of assignments that were not turned in. It'd also be a fair assessment to say my boys are solid now at 19 and 21. That being the case, I've never been real focused on SAT scores because I didn't need to be. But the SAT scores were significant because that's how my boys were selected into which of the universities they applied to. So how do I feel about PASS testing, which is the test that we use for the elementary and the middle school kids? It is important. But I'll tell you what's more telling about the PASS test scores to me. Not looking at a real small segment, although that's important when we need to tweak things. What's really significant to me is when I look at the test scores from 2009 and then we're looking at the numbers to 2012, we've gone down all but in 2 places. That's what's significant to me, that we also are performing below the state averages. I brought up to you all earlier in the forum, we can't keep explaining it away by the changing demographics. Wouldn't we all like to have a graph to be specific about the demographic changes, specifically what demographic? Are we talking race, gender, poverty? Are we talking military kids? What specifically? Because when I look at the numbers, I can tell you that in the last 6 years, we didn't see huge shifts in racial demographics. We saw the biggest shifts in poverty. That must be it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Richter?
I do believe they're an important tool, but they're just that. They're a tool. I think we have many assessments. We have our children take MAP testing. The most important assessments to me are not those summative evaluations, but our formative evaluations. The evaluations that the teachers do all year to monitor our students' growth. Those are the assessments I feel are important. The other, for lack of a better term, are autopsy data. They take it at the end of the year, the kids move to the next grade, you have the summer lag where there's some loss, and the next teacher picks up. Yes, they look at them because they're important. They're going to look at their former MAP scores. They're going to look at other pieces of data. But what really matters to me is how the children are applying themselves in the classroom. We can all have a great day and we can all have a bad day. But our teachers are our best evaluators. They're the ones who are with the kids day in and day out. And I challenge you, ask your child's teacher where your child is performing and what their strengths are and what their deficiencies are and what you need to work on. And they'll know the answer to that because they live it every day for your child.
Thank you. Ms. Brill?
Yes, I think the past scores are important. I agree with the other comments that it may depend on different factors as to whether or not our scores are good or bad. The good news is we went up in social studies in the 3rd grade and we went up in writing in the 5th and the 8th grade. So I wouldn't let any set of scores determine just how we should feel about our progress. I think that it tells you where you are at that moment in time, but I think that there are other factors that are important as well.
Ms. Corley?
Yes. Whenever I would receive the scores from my children, I would use that to, not only the teacher would communicate to me what I needed to work on with my child outside of school. So that way I could not only have the teacher to bring them up to the standards, but also where myself and my husband as parents could bring our children up to standards. So the PASS test can also be used as a tool for parent involvement in the students' progress in school.
Great, thank you. Now, this last question I saved till last because I want you to know that it was written by a 6th grade student. What are your plans for funding enrichments like band and art? Mr. Jackson, let's start with you.
Sure. I'm going to try to squeeze in 2 quick responses and answer that as well. There was a question that was asked about what are the shifting, changing demographics. To be specific, I wanted to share with you very quickly. The number of ESOL students who are in our district now, students for whom English is a second language, has grown up by 15%. The number of students with special needs, special education, 6 years ago we had 2,600 students. Now we have 3,200 students. The number of students who are homeless, 6 years ago there were 103 students in our district. Now we have 431, an increase of 300%. Now back to the question. It is important for us to make sure that the arts are a vital part of the learning experience in order to have a holistic education. They're critically important to make sure that every student has the opportunity to develop his or her creative skills. And there's a direct correlation and connection between students' ability to perform in the arts and their ability to perform particularly in mathematics courses and other courses of that nature because there's a coordinated effort there. So I want to make sure and continue to make sure that that has the highest priority of our district, the highest priority of this board. Another piece that's critically important also is to make sure that physical education is also a vital part of the learning experience. That is a challenge to make sure that students are able to work those hours in and get that time in to be able to actively participate in those types of activities that are part of PE. Without that happening, we create, once again, students who don't get the well-rounded educational experience that all of us got when we were in high school, in elementary and middle and high school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Elkins, let's come back to you.
Absolutely. The art is very important. It gives that child the ability to be well-rounded. As an art program, and just all of the arts in schools, you can incorporate reading, writing, math. So what you're doing is you're allowing that student to be creative, and you're also learning with that student. You're being creative with that student, and you're bringing out the best in that student. Again, as I shared before, students come with us with different abilities. We have to welcome the ability that they're coming, and we have to bring out the best in them. And to bring out the best in them is to know what students like. Because once you understand what students like, then that's when you can get them to enjoy other activities with that. Because with the arts, you can bring in that reading. You can read about the arts. You can add with that. You can do science and technology with that. So you want a well-rounded kid. So I'm all for an arts program, as well as CAPE programs.
Ms. Corley?
I sentiment the same thing, the same sentiments as everybody, as all of my panel members. But anyways, I was an aerobic instructor, and I'm gonna tell you, when you're instructing and you're teaching, you're into your dance routine and so on and so forth, it just opens your mind up. So therefore, the arts and enrichment program is going to open our children's mind up. Plus, it'll take their minds off of any type of any type of negative type things that have been going on with them. I can't stress to you enough how it just relaxes your mind and allows you to learn when you get back in the classroom, and sometimes even to figure out problems that you didn't know, that you didn't understand how you're going to figure it out. But I'm all for the arts and enrichment programs.
Thank you, Ms. Brill.
And my question is, why wouldn't we? It doesn't make any sense. I think the arts are extremely important. It's a part of our self-expression. All kinds of arts. There was an interesting, a fellow from Ridgeview that was on TV the other day. His last name is Nugent, and he danced. He did it for the parks. He was dancing on tables and dancing around the park, and he was filmed dancing. And it was really a celebration of his talent as a dancer, and then whoever was filming him. And I was extremely proud of this student. I know, Marty, you know the young fellow. So that's just an example of what the arts can do. It's an enrichment. What would life be like without music, or without arts, or without bands? Or we would be at a loss for our own self-expression. So I'm extremely supportive of all of that. And that child need not be worried. It's not going away.
Ms. Johnson?
My boys were blessed to be able to take art finally their senior years in high school, although they had dabbled in it, of course, in elementary school and middle school. And it's interesting that I have a science geek and a ranger. And both of them enjoyed their art experiences, and in fact, it enriched and filled their souls. And their artwork continues to hang throughout our house. And it's not just artwork, it's sculpture, it's everything else. When we talk about each of our kids hitting an excellence point, art is the way that we can sometimes correct and to reach a soul. So with our homeless kids, which represent 0.02% of our population, perhaps the art will reach them. With the Hispanic population that rose by 1.8% in the last 6 years, they can bring their Latino population to us. With our special needs kids, whose as a percentage of our student population has remained the same in the last several years, last 6 years, they also could be enriched by the arts. What I'm saying to you is, as demographic percentages, I still would like to see those numbers, and I'd love to know that our arts programs are reaching the souls of each and every child. The 6th grader, the baby, and even our kids that have gone on to college that have the experience at Richland too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richter.
I believe our arts classes, both musical arts and visual arts, keep some of our kids in school. I think it expands their world. They can see other cultures, they can feel other cultures and experience them. But more importantly, it gives them a passion. And if we are ever faced, our school board, whether I'm serving on it or not, if we're ever faced with having to cut the arts, I would hope that we would go back through a process that we've done before called strategic abandonment, and that is examine all of the programs we have and see if our other programs fit the needs of our current student population. We don't need to continue doing the same things we've always done just because we've always done them. So if music and the arts were ever going to be cut, I would hope we would look at every program, not just the arts.
Thank you. A round of applause, please. And let me say it's been a real pleasure. Everyone was just wonderfully well behaved. Made my job easy. Janie was yelling at me a little bit, but thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I want to thank all of you very much for coming this evening. On behalf of the Teacher Forum, I'd like to thank our fabulous moderator, Ms. Rita Paul, and our fabulous timekeeper, Jamie. Thank you so much, Jenny White, and of course our candidates. Thank you so much for coming this evening. I'd also like to thank the District Department of Communication and Strategic Partnerships, and of course the District Auditorium staff, and all of you here at Richland Northeast High School. Again, I would like to thank everyone for attending tonight, and please remember to vote on Tuesday, November the 6th. Thank you.